Welcome back to Making It Moments. Today I'm with Braiden McGrath. Now, Braiden's a very good course mate of mine and a good friend as well. We've got to know each other probably more so over the past couple of years, mainly this year, really.
Yeah, 100%.
And we're going to dive into Braiden's uni experience. We're going to dive into what he wants to go into next in his journey and just talk about it because, you know, uni is a thing that a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And let's kind of get into the nitty gritty of it. So coming to uni, Braiden, why did you choose Northumbria and how was that first experience of like first arriving in Newcastle? Because you also came over from a different country, so explain that.
Yeah, so I think at first it was a very like last minute decision to choose Northumbria. Like I think it was 5 choices that you had to pick from, and Northumbria was kind of in the mix at all times. But it was like within the last week or so that I had to submit like my first choice. I put Northumbria, and I hadn't even like been to Newcastle yet, so it was a wee bit scary, and I didn't really know anyone coming over. But I was like, you know what? Let's take the risk, have the chance, because I liked the course and I knew like good things about Newcastle. So when I came over, absolutely terrified for the first week, to be completely honest. But that kind of like freshers week and stuff really helps you like get to know everyone around you. And I was lucky enough to the flat that I moved into and like my first year accommodation. I'm still mates with the people I live with in that first year now. So I think that first step of meeting friendly people, going to those freshers events, kind of forced myself out of my comfort zone, going to like rugby training and all as well, which is where I met Will, one of our mates. And yeah, really just getting involved and trying to be as out there as possible really like broke the ice with mates, and then getting to meet people on a course like yourself. But then, like I said, this year's mainly been the year that we've gotten a bit closer. But yeah, last minute decision, and I've never really looked back, to be honest, and I've enjoyed every second of it.
Nice one. How would you kind of describe your first year experience across the whole year?
I'd probably say it was a lot less uni work.
More drinking.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. And I can look back at it now and say it, because I think at the time I was just loving it. Like going out almost every night with mates that I've just made, and then constantly like growing that circle of, it began with like the people that I live with, and then just got more and more and more. And mainly that entire first year was just like getting to grips with like being away from home, being away from my friends and my family, and just kind of getting that learning curve of getting like a part-time job alongside uni, and learning that I need to pay for my bills and what's financially more important than other things. So slowing down, going out as much. So it was like a personal growth year where I had to figure out like what do I need to do to live by myself. And at the age of 18, having gone straight from like school to uni, it was daunting, really daunting. But learning about it like within psychology as well, having all the like mental health support from the uni really, really made the difference.
Awesome. And going into your second year, how did things change and what did you take from that year?
So second year was definitely like, I would almost say one of the biggest step ups that I've had to do from first year, because it was all the tests and exams were multiple choice. Yeah. So it was never really tested.
The work really ramped up, didn't it?
Exactly. So second year was like the big step up in terms of theory and all the amount of learning that I had to do. So a lot of face-to-face contact, a lot of sacrifices in terms of being able to balance part-time work and then balance uni, balance my social life. Because like I said already, first year was like the social life year, and getting to terms that's no longer possible, and I have to like be able to work and go to uni, go to the library, and force myself to do go the extra mile, which first year I did not do. Because I had it in my head, first year didn't go towards my degree, it didn't really matter. Then realizing that second year was like, oh, okay, this is actually a lot of work to do. This is actually what uni's all about. Actually did a try. Yeah, it was definitely a big step up. But I think surrounding myself with the likes of yourself and Will and Lucas and people who are like always pushing themselves to do really well kind of made me go the extra mile as well. So,
awesome. And how important is that, who you surround yourself by?
Yeah, again, something I've been reflecting on recently, being at my final year. It's like I've seen a lot of times that people say the closest 5 people you surround yourself with is the most predictable thing to see where you end up as well. So I think third year was the year that I chose to live with 4 lads who I all knew are going to strive to do well. Don't really go out as much, which the people I lived with first year, second year, that's all they wanted to do. So picking those people instead of staying with the people I lived in second year, and realizing that, like, third year is even that more of a step up of going to uni every day. So yeah, surrounding myself with those kind of people who I knew were going to do well, even though I kind of wanted to like party and social life myself. So going against what I wanted to do, but what I needed to do, that was like a big choice, but the right one, I think, in the end.
Awesome. And how have you found this year with those people and your final year of uni?
I found it really, really good, actually. I think it's been a lot less like going out and, waking up the next day hungover and all that kind of stuff, which you do get in uni life. That's part of the reason of it. But doing more like bonding stuff and like side quests and going to the beach and going on like hikes and stuff really helped my mental health instead. Alongside such a tough year, such a mentally demanding year. So choosing those kind of people who really helped me and like looking out for me, seeing when I was struggling or not really doing well in my exams or my assignments, and realizing like, Braiden, you're not really on top of this. So surrounding myself with them really made sure that I was like top of my game, and getting my dissertation back, getting that 62, and that 2-1 really to kind of made me reflect like, oh, that was the perfect thing to do. And I really thank those people that I surrounded myself with that basically got me there.
Well done, brother. Well done. That's a really good score, man. That 2-1's what a lot of us strive for. So well done.
It's what I've always aimed for. But
what were those struggles?
I think like a lot of times people don't really realize at uni how lonely it can be, and that was something that I was kind of getting to grips with, especially with the amount of work in dissertation and exams and keeping on top of everything. I found myself in the library so much more than I ever was before. And all that time I did just spend alone doing that work. And I did find that really tough, not having that social interaction every day. Like, there'd be some days I just end up going, maybe speaking to one person the entire day. And going from that in third year, and then in first year where I'd literally be spending every day with minimum 5 people, like, that was a big learning curve. And I think that's something that I wasn't really used to. And again, moving away from home, when I'm at home, I've got a family of 5, so there's always someone there that I can just sit and chat to if I'm bored. Whereas this year, it's been massively demanding for everyone, and I feel like that takes a massive impact on people's mental health. And especially when I keep deciding to push myself even further than that, doing the likes of the Fight Night, the Great North Run, it's like I'm not really helping myself. I'm pushing myself too far when I need to actually take a second, take a step back, and look at like the bigger picture, like what's going on. I need to look after my mental health whilst surrounding myself with my mates who are gonna like, help support me in that way.
So living in a family of 5, how do you feel like that shaped you, and how do you think that's kind of navigated your relationship with loneliness? Because you're saying you struggled with that a bit this year.
Yeah, I would say it was definitely like this entire 3 years have been. This is a massive learning curve. Being the middle child, the middle child syndrome, all that. I think having an older brother who I always used to talk to like all the time, and having a little sister who I'm gonna have to like look out for, and mum and dad always being there as well. I think that was that big step of realizing that I needed to take the risk and go against maybe what is comfortable, which allows myself for that personal growth. And over that past 3 years, I've seen a massive improvement in every aspect of my life, really. And all that came from was that decision to move away from that comfortable family of 5 support network that I'd built, and then going away, challenging myself, building that support network again, but with like my mates, you, and the ones that I live with as well. So I think it was a massive, massive decision to make, but again, the right one for me to grow and do better.
And do you struggle spending time by yourself?
I think I definitely do. Like, a lot of times I've realized that when I'm alone with myself, my brain just never switches off. It's always going at a million miles an hour, and even when I'm trying to go to sleep, there's always something that I'm thinking about or something to worry about. So that option of when I'm working really, really hard and I don't have that chance to speak to other people, I've realized that I need to have that time to myself to think through this and really realize that some of those things that I'm worrying about aren't actually that much of a problem. It's all just in my head, and it's all just something that I'm overthinking the outcome of. Oh, what if this doesn't go well? What if the exam doesn't go well? And then that'll lead to I won't get into my masters, I won't get a job, and that's just how my brain naturally goes. So I think doing the things like the Great North Run and physical activity, I found is like a massive benefit towards that, where I can spend time by myself and then realize, oh, all these worries aren't actually that big of a problem. And that physical activity as well is a massive help. Even if I don't face the problems head on, it's just a break from that constant worry, and those challenges kind of distract me from it and help me like build and build and build and just be better.
Do you feel like you've become more confident because of your uni experience?
Absolutely. And I often get asked questions nowadays, like when I go home, and people that I speak to are a bit younger than me who are still in school or don't really know what to do. They ask me like, why did you go, or how did you find it? And I've said I've never regretted a single thing. Coming to uni was the perfect decision to do, and I found a massive improvement in every aspect of like myself, physically, mentally. Like coming here, getting my first job in Hollister. Like even I remember looking back then and thinking how nervous I was, even just for a small part-time job that really didn't matter at all.
But it matters to you though.
Yeah, exactly. Like in my head, I'd given it this massive significance, and now that I can look back, I'm just like, oh, what was I worried about? I can do this.
Now you go hungover every time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, maybe not sure the manager this bit. But, yeah, that does happen quite a lot. And they've got to know me like that, and they don't really care anymore. So, but no, going away, coming to uni, I think every single aspect of me, like as a person, has improved. Like I know being at home, I'd always be worrying about everything and how like my mates seen me as a person, and basically every action that I did, everything that I thought about doing was based off what other people would think of me when I did that thing. And I think now I spent these entire 3 years growing on like what I want instead of what I just think other people want me to do, which has been a massive thing for me to like get over and push through.
That's interesting because we did an episode called Daily Stoic where Jamie read out a Daily Stoic about from Marcus Aurelius talking about how we put so much value into other people's opinions.
Absolutely.
But we don't put it into our own. So how have you transitioned from doing that to putting more love into yourself?
Yeah, it was definitely, again, massive learning curve, but I think it was, like you said, about struggling to spend time with myself. And I've been listening like a lot of different podcasts and allowing myself that time to think like, what do I actually want instead of like what my parents want and what my mates want, because I've realized that that's all that matters in the end. Like if I end up on my deathbed, I'm not going to look back and think, oh, I should have done this because my mate wanted me to do it. I'm going to think, oh, I should have done that because that's what I'm passionate about. That's what I want to do. So taking that time and almost like testing myself in that, what do I want to do, going down different avenues, taking that risk, and realizing, okay, it's actually what I want is the most important thing. Whilst also like looking out for other people and, not taking for granted other people's opinions, but it's not the main thing to worry about.
Mate, awesome. Really, really cool stuff. Good to get into that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the word mental health earlier. Me and you went to an event with Will, who's been on the podcast.
Yeah.
And it was about how, mental health can be an issue in the Northeast particularly. There's quite high cases of it.
Yeah.
And they were talking about that bottom-up approach, weren't they, of people going to like communities and just being able to, you're not forcing them to talk, but you allow them to just talk through just being there.
Yeah, of course.
What's kind of giving you some form of passion towards men's mental health? Because even just wanting to go to an event like that shows you've got an interest. Where does that come from?
I think it's come from that, me saying earlier about how I'd always worried about other people's opinions of me, and finding it difficult to be lonely and like in my own space. And I think like over COVID, when I was quite young, like in my teenage years, I did find that really difficult because essentially I was just locked in my own room, in my own head. And if that's something that I struggled with now, go back like 5 years, I struggled with it even more than that. And always, I think nowadays there's always that stigma of men being able to keep it to themselves, be that like outgoing person that never really has an issue, always like looking out for other people. I know that's maybe not the right thing, the right way to look at it, but that's just always that was imprinted in my head. Growing up with like a father figure who was always came across as that really strong person that you could like depend on. So then that then reflected on me being like I should be that person that people should depend on, and always be. I feel like I'm a very emotionally intelligent person. So when I see people struggle, I feel like it's my job to go out there and help them. And I often found that it was males that I could see were struggling the most, but had no outlet to do it. And I figured with all my like male friendships that I've got, males are like the least likely kind of friendship that I have that we'd actually talk about serious things like this. Um, which just made me more think over the years. I've realized how important it is to have that conversation even when you're scared to do it. And going to that was something that kind of reignited that flame of how important it actually is, and how well from the psychological lens, that like those psychological interventions of like therapy and SSRIs don't always work. And that's what that study showed, is that that community contact of even just speaking to a mate or speaking to someone that isn't like a clinical psychologist, not someone professional, but someone who's just there to listen. And I found that that kind of study that we went and listened to and watched just kind of helped realize that that can be my job to help other people who are struggling, because I've been there. So now I know what I need to do to then help them get through that as well.
Awesome. And how have you yourself been on a journey of becoming more open with your emotions?
I think at the start of uni, again, I found I was very like closed off, trying not to think about like mental health and everything. And part of that was that social life aspect of going out and drinking with your mates that kind of just distracted from everything. So I just didn't even face them at all. And then going in the second year, going into the third year, having that more lonely time has just made me realize that I need to think about like what I'm doing and my emotional health, because when I begin to struggle, I then need to like think about it and face the fact that I am struggling, and what should I do to then better myself for that. And it's a case of trying and testing different ways to get through it, and maybe some of them didn't work as well, but I've tried it, and that's what made me realize. Um, Part of it was like the Great North Run, that was pushing all my efforts towards something else, and instead of facing the fears of me being alone and thinking about all the emotions that I'm going through. But I think over the past 3 years, I've figured like different ways of how I can deal with it, and I think it's different for every person, really. So that's just like a kind of journey that you need to go on by yourself and figure out, because everyone's different, I feel like.
So what have you found worked for you?
I think spending time with mates has really made me realize how important it is, that time with them. Like we mentioned before, we just Monday past there, me and my mates went up to Beedlam, I think, I can't remember what
Is
it's
it
called.
Beedlam?
Beednell.
Beednell.
Beadnell, yeah. And like spending that just one day together with my mates, just enjoying the comfort with them. And sometimes when I'm feeling down like that, I know that they're the mates that I can go to speak about it. And I know that a lot of them can, like when I am feeling down, they can just look at me and say, oh, Braiden's not really doing okay. And then they just come to me and chat, and then I just open up about it. I think that was maybe the biggest problem for me, was opening up. I've always felt like I had to deal with it myself, and it was no one else's problem. So it was just me to do it. But like spending that day on Monday, just going up and enjoying myself, and maybe spending one-on-one time with someone, just chatting about like how life's actually going, and having that check in with them, that kind of thing. I realized that the more regular I do it, the better I feel. Opening up about myself, and maybe it's not the entire story, but even that small bit of giving that burden to someone else just like relaxes me a wee bit and takes that weight off my shoulders, because the emotions are between both of us now. It's not just me. holding it in and bottling it up until I just explode and like something really bad happens. So yeah, I think the main thing is speaking to someone and just like opening up, even though the first step is really difficult. Once you do it, it's worth it.
Yeah, it's quite a vulnerable thing, and I always remember Simon Sinek saying it's so important to just sit in the mud with someone else or have someone sit in the mud with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because have you found you've had to navigate, especially as a male, you want to give that solution, you want to be that superhero who gives who fixes the problem.
Yeah.
Have you found you've had to navigate learning how to listen to people as opposed to trying to give them a solution?
Yeah, I think that's what I've realized with that kind of opening up between friends. You know, it's not just me talking to them, it's them talking to me as well. I'm realizing that sometimes they're speaking to me not to get a solution, not for me to tell them what they need, because oftentimes they know what they need. It's just a case of being the outlet for them to speak to you, and like I just said, you know, lifting that weight off your shoulders and giving that kind of burden to someone else and not just yourself to carry. And kind of like you said, just sitting in the mud with them. Often that is just exactly what they need, even though it's maybe not fixing the problem, but it's definitely making it easier for them to deal with.
Awesome, brother. Well, thanks for sharing that, because that was really nice to get into. Now you're going through another transition now of finishing uni, and you're now looking into your next steps. And I know we've spoke of the various past months about what that's going to look like for you, because it's a common conversation at this time of the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
What does that sort of future, that near future, look for you right now? What's your sort of dilemma with that at the moment?
So it's just been a lot of conversations with family and friends, and what's the best thing to do, and where do I see myself in 10 years, and all those conversations have basically led me to the fact that I don't really know where I want to be in 10 years. And I feel like that's the state of every other student in this situation right now. Like there are some like lucky people who know what they want to do and they just go for it, and fair play to them. But at the minute I'm realizing how I don't really know what to do. It's almost like a privilege to not know, to be able to take a risk somewhere and give that chance. I mean, I'm only 21. Like, I'm not going to have my entire career planned out by the stage, am I? As much as the past 3 years have helped me figure out what kind of niches that I do like, by no means am I in a state that in 10 years' time I'm going to know where I am. So kind of reflecting on the past 3 years and what I'm going to be doing, having those conversations with whether it's like a professional psychologist that is there to give their perspective on how they got to where they are now. I think it's made me realize that this current moment is the most important thing, and realizing what your options are at the minute. You need to evaluate those, and that's how you then get from there to the next step after that. Instead of worrying about the end goal, worry about like the next step and the next step, instead of just panicking about, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do and like I should have this all worked out. You really shouldn't. It's just what's the next best option.
Do you feel like you do feel that pressure to feel like you should know what you want to do? And
absolutely.
Do you forget that we are as young as we are? Do you think that's easily done?
Yeah, it's so easily done, and that's what I've been doing for the past like 2-3 months. And I've finally been able to get to that conclusion of, like I said, you know, what's the next best option. But go back like 2 months, that's exactly where I was. I was like tearing my hair out, like, why haven't I got this figured out, you know? And like my older brother at the minute, he knew from the get go that he wanted to be a primary school teacher. So he went from secondary school to uni into a part-time job in that field, and has now recently just got his interview and got the full-time position there. So he just went from A to B to C, and I felt like, and my mum also went from A to B to C, dad went from A, and I just feel like, you know, I should know this as well. But realizing that, you know, not every situation is the same, and especially with psychology, there's so many different routes you can go down. Like it can apply to a million different fields, and that was my issue. It was like, I've got too many options. I'd rather get told like, here's A and B, pick one of those two. But now realizing like it's actually a privilege to have those options and take those risks and, you know, fail, but at least I tried, you know. So if the next year what I plan to do doesn't work out, it's really not the end of the world. Like you said, I'm only 21. You know, we're in that kind of age of, I feel like 20 to 30, it's that time to like take those risks and take the chances. And if they don't work out, then it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, take it step by step, man.
Yeah.
I think it's an important thing because you don't want to look back on these periods of time now and think I was stressing so much about the next step and what I wanted to do for a career, because these are, I mean, every year can be the best year of your life, but these years are those fresh years where you're doing exciting things, you're experiencing new things, a lot of new experiences, big experiences.
Yeah.
And you want to be as present as possible in them and just taking it step by step, because we all experience it. I know what that feeling's like, where you feel like you need to be thinking about that next action all the time.
Yeah.
But then you'll look back and think, I wasn't even present in that. So just taking each moment by moment. How did it feel to finish uni? Because I know I felt a bit emotional about it. So how was it for you?
Yeah, it was, well, again, very much like you. I was very emotional, and I was like, what do I do now? You know, I've spent all these 3 years of first year not so much working hard, but growing and doing all these things that I never imagined that I would do, and then all of a sudden on a Tuesday at 11 a.m, I don't need to do anything anymore.
We both had a pint of Madry in our hands.
Yeah, exactly. That's the best way to do it, isn't it? But no, it was just so strange, and I still really don't think it's like fully set in yet that all those 3 years are done, and I can never go back and like relive any of those moments. So it's, you know, like you say, and it's always nice like going on Instagram and seeing your thing pop up about like living in the moment, and I've found myself saying recently that just more and more often, because it's that time of we're done. So instead of dwelling on like, oh, we're done, what do I do? Try and living in the current moment that I've got, like in maybe a couple of months' time. That's when I really need to make that like big decision. But right at this second, I've got my house. I've got a part-time job to keep some money going. Why don't I just enjoy the time with my mates? So it was going from that emotional case of like, what do I do? Ringing my mum and dad, being like, you know, what's next? Like, to now going like, let's just enjoy the time that I've got and try not to worry about like those 3 years are now gone. It's just, and the next door is going to be open now. So it's worrying about like the next thing and trying to enjoy myself while I can and enjoy that next choice that I've got to make, you know, instead of just dwelling on the past, something that I can't really control.
100%, man. It got described to me once by a very good man called Derek, where you know those sand sort of time pieces where the sand comes through the glass.
I don't know what that's called, but I know what you mean.
The sandglass timers, whatever. The point in the middle he described as being the present, where the sand's passing through.
Yeah.
The bit before is the past and it's going into the future.
Yeah.
And we can spend a lot of time in that past part of the glass or the future, but we spend so little time at times just being where the sand's going through.
Yeah.
But that's where the beauty happens. So just trying to spend as much time there as possible.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone, because a lot of people do it, it's not just an experience that very few people go through, to someone coming to a different country, a different city as a uni student for the first time? What advice would you give to them?
I think part of my debate at the time was whether it was the right choice or not, and doing all the if, buts and maybes, and like what is this going to mean for me in the future, and worrying about what if it doesn't work, and what if I don't make any friends, and like what if this happens, what if that happens. I think my advice would be just to take that risk, because from my personal experience, although I'm only 20 years, I've not really had that many experiences just yet, but from what I've learned is that often that risk can be the best decision you've ever made. And I found moving away here, like I described earlier, like I didn't know anyone here. I wasn't really sure. It was a last minute decision and I was so worried about it all. But looking back, I just wish I'd told myself, like, just do it and just take that risk. Because at the end of the day, we're so young that a risk, you know, it doesn't always work out. Like my brother's girlfriend, she went away to uni for a year in Edinburgh. Didn't really like it, came back and is now on her way to finishing her degree and becoming a primary school teacher as well, making that next step. But I think what I've learned from that, everyone's experience is different, but you still take that risk, and if it doesn't work out, it's really not the end of the world. And in my case, it was the best decision I've ever made. So yeah, my advice would be just take that risk, no matter what the drawbacks and what's going through your head about the worries and what might happen. Just do it.
Amazing. I agree, because taking that risk, at least you got to find out. At least you get to minimize that future regret of thinking, should I have done it? What would it have been like? You actually got to find out. So Braiden, it's been a really good episode. I've really appreciated you having you on. Just before we close up, I was just wondering if there's anything else you wanted to get out or share. If not, that's fine.
No, not really. I think I feel like uni for a lot of people is just that kind of rite of passage of maybe it wasn't the right choice to do for your degree. You know, a lot of people, a lot of parents and stuff I've spoken to never even end up using their degree. But for me, like if I look back in like when I'm like 30 or 40 and look back to now, no matter what job I'm in the future, I'll never regret coming to uni. I'll never regret that risk that I took to go away and just enjoy myself. So I think reflecting recently has just been about taking those risks and taking those chances and just kind of learn about yourself on the way. And I've absolutely loved it. I've loved every second of it.
Brilliant, bro. It's been an absolute pleasure, man. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Braiden. That's been
Appreciate
Braiden McGrath, Making It Moments. Take it easy.